Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, recycling trade publications. Patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMYZF, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Sean Brodrick, senior editor at WeissRatings.com. Welcome back to the show, Sean.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Sean, the stock market's right now more or less flat after a minor correction. Does this dishearten investors, or are they just sitting back and waiting to see what the next stage is?
That's a good question. I mean, I think the market can stand to wait and take a breath, considering the rampage that it's been on since last year. However, if you want to call the market toppy, there is plenty to support that view. For example, the S&P 500 hasn't undergone a single correction of even 5% over the past 9 months. Now, normally we'd expect at least one 10% correction during that time frame. When you speak about valuation, which some people like to focus on, the Shiller PE ratio for the S&P 500 was recently at 38.64. Now it's more than double its average of 16.84, that average taken over the last 151 years. So you might say, well, things change and all that stuff. That's true. I'll give you one more bearish point. The previous 4 times, the S&P 500's Shiller PE ratio topped out and sustained over 30 for a while. The S&P 500 subsequently went down by at least 20%. So we have those things more from a valuation technical thing. In the real world, we have the COVID-19 Delta variant. How much is that going to impact economies? I didn't expect any widespread shutdowns. I've been saying this for quite some time. But people might self-isolate, and that could kind of drag on economic activity if, like, people were just afraid to go out of their homes, right? And we're hearing from one big company after another that they plan to bring back their employees back into the offices permanently after Labor Day, but that's not happening now. So that's on the COVID front. Here in the U.S., and you Canadians can thank your lucky stars you don't have this, we have something called the debt ceiling limit. And what that is for reasons that pretty much escape all of us, they have a hard debt ceiling, how much debt the federal government can hold, which is currently $28.5 trillion. It sounds like a lot, and it is, but we're at that limit now. It went back into effect at the end of July, and right now the Treasury and the Fed are moving some things around, trying to keep things paid. They can only do that to the end of September. So we have to have some kind of resolution on raising the debt ceiling. However, all the Republicans say, well, all but 4 of them, and I'm speaking about the U.S. Senate now, they're saying that they won't consent to raising the debt ceiling unless there's real cuts in spending in the federal budget. So I don't know what's going to happen. I can tell you back in 2011, we had such a fight over it that the U.S. was technically in default for about 4 days, I think, and so you think, well, that's awful. Yeah, but that worried the market so much that the S&P sank during that crisis by more than 18%. 2013, we had another fight over the debt ceiling. That didn't impact the markets at all because it worked out more quickly. So that's the uncertainty in the market. Is the debt ceiling going to be worked out quickly? Is it going to take a long time? Who knows what's going to happen? It seems like the two sides in like Washington have really hardened into really loggerheads right now. So, how could this be resolved? So I think that's an uncertainty that the market has to work through. And so if you're looking for anything that could push the market down the stairs of all that valuation and like technical stuff that I told you before, the debt ceiling might be it, even more so than the problems with COVID. So we'll have to see how it works out, but that's one of the things that I'm watching right now.
What's going on with crude?
Well, not having a good week. That said, stocks are starting to outperform the underlying commodity, so that's good, right? I mean, that's usually the sign of the bottom when the stocks start to outperform. But even though that's the kind of bullish thing, the bearish thing is that crude is now at support that's held since July, and if that breaks, the next support is down around, 62, 63? That's support from May. And then you get down to the $60 support we last saw in April. So let's just say crude has to hold here. The action we're seeing in the energy stocks tells us crude wants to hold here. Crude wants to go higher because the energy stocks, or most of them anyway, are improving. So maybe the stocks are right and we're about to see crude oil bounce, and that would be good news for the energy complex. Maybe we'll see things roll over again, in which case the stocks have just been faking us out. So I wouldn't commit any money to energy either way right now. We'll wait and see what happens. As I said, crude oil, or at least the U.S. crude oil benchmark, or other benchmarks, the U.S. crude oil benchmark is right at support right now. So we'll have to see what happens. I just looked at Brent. It's also at support, but it's a higher support level. So we'll see how that goes too.
We'll have more with Sean Brodrick right after this.
Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, recycling trade publications. Patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMYZF, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Sean Brodrick. Sean, is there a big pressure to move up the price of so-called battery metals, lithium, nickel, cobalt?
Well, we just saw a massive sell-off in the stocks, not in the metal, not in the underlying lithium, but in the stocks, because Bank of America came out and said that said a couple of the lithium producers were really overbid, and they also said that so much production's coming online that we're going to see production double next year. Now, that's exactly the opposite of what UBS has been saying. So UBS says no, things are going to get tighter next year. But anyway, that outlook from Bank of America was enough to kick lithium and rare earth stocks by association down the stairs in the past week or so. Okay, that's that. However, we just heard news from China today, and so it all depends on when you listen to this podcast. So let's say recently, that over in China, because the government is cracking down on big tech, investors over there are looking for places that don't have the things that the Chinese government is cracking down on. What the Chinese government doesn't like is tech that tracks people, gives information on people, stuff like that. They hate that for some reason. I guess they want to be the only people collecting that data. So, what looks good in that situation? Rare earth, battery metals. We know they have great underlying fundamentals, and there's nothing about spying on people in those stocks. So we've seen a lot of money in China flowing into those stocks recently. And in fact, the biggest Chinese battery maker just did a huge fundraising on the strength of that, because they'd love to have more cash to splash around. And, investors want that stock quite badly. So, I think this is a very short-term pullback in lithium stocks, rare earth stocks. I'll be adding more on this pullback. Maybe later this week, maybe early next week. It all depends, because I'd still like to see some kind of actual bottom form. But I mean, I could talk about some of our individual lithium picks, but I know that your show doesn't like to talk about individual names. But they have been on a roller coaster. I mean, I could easily see how people would get shaken out of these things, the way that these things have just been going wild. But I believe that the bullish long-term forces are in play, and so this pullback that we're seeing now, or that we just saw, it might be over today, is a buying opportunity. So definitely that's something to keep on your radar.
Are you keeping an eye on the cryptos right now?
No. I never do. Now, I work with people all the time, and they call me up to tell me things, which, in fact, I just got this phone call, what was it, 2-3 days ago? Bitcoin just hit a new high. Hooray! That's great for our subscribers. And there you go, dude. You go. You do very well. I want you to do well because you're part of my company, but I am not a crypto guy. Cryptos are obviously coming into their own. They're probably the investment of the year. You know, I mean, definitely there's some good positive momentum there, and so that means pullbacks can be bought. So if that's what you trade in, good for you. I think you're doing very well this year.
Are there other areas that you're exploring right now that perhaps other people aren't?
Maybe, but I'm going to give those to my subscribers first. I mean, yeah, there are things I'm looking at, but, you know, in a market that is as overbought as this market is, it's hard to find value, right? I mean, you're just looking around for things. So look for things that have been beaten down for a long time that might show signs of life, because you know they're heavily shorted, just because, you know, people play trends. And if the trend is for something to go down, I can think of many precious metal stocks that have had great news recently, and they still sold lower. I think we're near an inflection point in precious metals. I was looking at certain valuations in the precious metal stocks as a group, and the last time we saw these kind of wigged out valuations, that proceeded like a massive rally. So just technically speaking, precious metals is one area to look at for real values. Now, I have my subscribers in a bunch of things. They all pay dividends, which is rare in the precious metal space, but I figure if I'm going to be wrong, at least people should get paid, right? But the time will be coming to put our money to work in the explorers, the developers, the small producers that don't pay dividends, because those are the ones that are most leveraged to a rally in gold. You know that's going to happen. And so those, you know, keep your eyes on them. I hope you have your shopping list, because they will blast off.
Sean, thank you so much for chatting with us.
It's always good to talk to you.
My guest has been Sean Brodrick, Senior Editor at WeissRatings.com. If you have any questions for Sean or any of our other guests, you can send them to info@HowStreet.com, and we'll ask that question for you. Our popular YouTube channel is Talk Digital Network. Find us on Twitter @HowStreet. We're also on Facebook. I'm Jim Goddard. Thank you for listening.
Comments made on HowStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com radio is a production of HowStreet Media Incorporated.